Okay, so hopping straight into the tutorial, the first thing I am using is some disposable gloves. You can either use reusable or disposable, but you're going to need some gloves for this tutorial. So sometimes when I'm bleaching my knots, I do use the BW2 Clairol bleaching powder, and to follow up with that, I use the Shimmer Lights shampoo in order to eliminate some of the brassiness from the closure and or frontal. But for this tutorial, I'm going to be using the Salon Care Prism Lights bleaching powder, and then the neutralizing shampoo that I'll be using is the ISO Plus. You can use any neutralizing shampoo of your choice, and for this tutorial I will be using the 30 volume developer. Sometimes I use the 40 if I'm in a rush, because I know that the 40 is going to lift the hair a lot faster, but if I want to take my time with it, I'm going to use the 30 volume developer. Both are by Clairol. So next you're going to need an applicator brush as well as an applicator bowl, and the conditioner that I'm going to be using is by Paul Mitchell. You can use any conditioner of your choice, and then I'm going to be using some Clinge Wrap as well as aluminum foil to help process, and the Clinge Wrap so that I can see the processing of the hair. Alright y'all, so let's get started. Okay, so I know you're probably thinking, do I need to bleach my knots? And the answer is no. Bleaching the knots is just a way to customize the hairline to give it a more realistic illusion. So when a full lace wig, lace closure, or lace frontal is made, it's made by hand, and basically it's through a method called ventilation. And what happens is an individual takes and actually sews in each individual hair into a lace, and it causes it to have a knot. And the knot is these little black tiny dots that you see at the base of any closure or frontal. And basically, when you bleach your knots, you're getting rid of that illusion. So what you're doing is processing the closure, frontal, or full lace wig in order for it to give a more realistic hairline for you. So you are lightening the knots. So what I'm going to be using is the Prism Lights and the 30 volume developer. I have the 40 picture here, but I actually ended up using the 30. So because I'm doing a frontal, a closure, and another frontal wig, I am using 3 scoops of the bleaching powder. As far as the developer, you just want to eyeball that because you want it to be a specific texture, in which I will show you in this next clip. So I basically start off with a small amount, and I just keep on adding to get the texture that I am looking for. So the consistency that you're looking for is more like a pasty consistency, because you want the mixture to go onto the frontal or the closure without actually seeping through the closure or the frontal. So this is what the consistency looks like. So basically you just want to paint that on, and what I normally do is start from the back of the closure and then work my way up to the front of the hairline of the closure, because the front of the hairline tends to process a little faster than the back of it. Okay, so if you've done it correctly, this is what your closure should look like when you are completely done with putting the mixture onto the closure. And you just want to let this sit for about 30 to 45 minutes. You want to repeat this same process on the frontal, starting with the back of the frontal and then working your way up to the hairline of the frontal. I'm taking the Clinge Wrap and I am placing it on top of the bleach portion of the closure in the frontal so that I can see how much the frontal is processing. So once the closure and the frontal are at the color, the desired color that you want, then you want to take it off. Again, I left it on there for about 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so now we're going to move on to closure and frontal placement. So in this video, I'm going to be using the mesh dome cap. And if you haven't checked out my previous video on the best wig caps to sew a wig on, whether it be machine or handmade, then definitely check that out. I will link that below. Because this is a middle part wig, I am placing the closure in the middle of the wig, and I am pulling it a tad bit, maybe like a ½ inch in front of the actual wig cap. Then the next thing you want to do is proceed to start pinning. You want to start with the front because of course you want to have it so that it's stable enough for you to pin down the back. Then you want to go ahead and start pinning down the back of the closure. So when you are placing your closure or pinning your closure, you want to ensure that it is completely flat. This will ensure that there's no bumps or lumps when you actually sew your tracks on. I know that many of you probably already know how to tie a knot in a thread, but I'm just going to show you on camera for those of you who may not know an easier way to tie the ends of your thread when you are sewing on your closure or your frontal. So what I normally do is take the bottom pieces of the thread and I just wrap them around my finger to form an X, and then I just roll that X down, pull the end of that thread, and then there you formed a knot. Okay, so now let's start sewing. So with my sewing technique, I am just basically double looping the knot, in which you will see here. And I'm doing that all the way until one side of the closure is completely sewn down, and then I will go back, do that same method on the other side of the closure until it's completely sewn down. Alright, so if you followed the instructions correctly, the closure should be sewn down, and this is what it should look like. Okay, so moving on to the frontal unit, you want to basically follow the same steps for the closure unit, except for this one, you want to bring it above the front of the band of the cap, maybe about a ½ inch. so that you can ensure that the wig fits properly. Next, you want to ensure that both sides of the frontal are equal, and then you want to proceed to start to pin. So I normally start off with a pin in the middle just to kind of eyeball it to see if both sides of the frontal are equal, and then if they aren't, then I'll go back and adjust, and then if they are, then I just proceed to continue to pin. So what I'm doing is I'm not pulling the wig, the frontal back, I'm just pulling it down. That will ensure that one, the wig cap does fit once you actually sew the wig, the hair on the cap, and then two, it ensures that you don't have any lumps, as I'm going to be showing you here. So I generally use the same stitch that I used on the closure on the frontal. So same thing, I'm just double knotting it and then continuing to sew down one side and then doing the opposite side. Alright, so when you get to the end of your thread, you just want to cut it long enough to be able to tie it in about 2 to 3 knots, and then you want to cut it at the knot, and then you are done. Alright y'all, so this is what a complete frontal sewn down on a wig cap looks like. So in today's video, we went over how to bleach the knots on a closure and a frontal. We also talked about the placement of the frontal as well as the closure. If you learned anything new from this video, then let me know that down in the comments section. And if you like videos like this, then let me know that by thumbs up in this video, subscribe to my channel, and stay tuned for the next video on how to make a lace closure wig by hand and a frontal wig by hand. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for your support. I look forward to seeing y'all in my next video. Bye.